Hello YouTube, this is dtm52. I guess I should put out a deconversion story. I know most people have one, so might as well tell you what my story is. And I don't really think it's a deconversion story because I didn't really deconvert from anything. My parents had 5 kids, and my father was baptized Catholic, and my mother was Protestant, and she liked to go to church. But most of the other part of the family was Catholic, so there was kind of always a kind of problem, if you went to church, the Protestant church, and 3/4 of the family went to a Catholic church. So they didn't go to the church very often. They, they once in a while we'd go to a church, and I hated the church. I hated being in a church. I hated looking at the people. And when I was in church, I felt like I was sitting in a phony place. The place wasn't real. Because I knew my father didn't like religion at all. Now, he was baptized Catholic, but he never went to his father had married a woman who was Catholic, and so they baptized him Catholic, but then they got a divorce, and then the woman was gone, and my grandfather who was not religious at all, and had some things to say about the Pope. He didn't raise him with any religion. My father wasn't religious, and then my mother, she was kind of religious. She was religious to, she felt like she had to hold the family together and take us to church every once in a while. But we'd only go like on a Christmas or an Easter or something because it was 5 kids. You had them all dressed up, how to put them in a car. And most of the time my father, he was a car salesman, so he worked on Sundays. He wasn't he wasn't about to lose money and go to church. Sometimes he did, but he'd only go there because he thought maybe he'd get a sale from one of the parishioners would. And you'd go, well, where's Jesus now? Why isn't he out there healing people? And why isn't the world a better place? And why doesn't Jesus just come down and tell everybody what he wants us to do rather than listen to this guy or the Catholic Church guy or any of these guys? Because they all had different stories. They all had a different slant on things, and none of it matched up. So I guess my story is I couldn't stand church. It never made any sense to me. It never was reality. And the stories they said they came up with were unbelievable. And I think when I was one kindergarten class I was in, I said it had all these beautiful little pictures of the Bible and the sheep and Jesus kissing kids and holding sheep and everything. And then it got to this point where he's got this bull whip and he's whipping people and he's overturning tables and money's flying in the air. And I go to the teacher. I said, "Well, I thought he's the emperor of the universe, the king of the kings, or whatever he is. Why does he have to flip tables over and whip people and bulls and people are running from him?" And on this page, this little kitty Bible, she goes, "Well, he was in human form at this time, and he couldn't do any magic, so that's why I had to flip over all these chairs and whip the bulls and whip the people and tell them they had to leave his father's house with all the money changing going on. They had to leave." I go, "Why the heck doesn't he just poof it? He's the emperor, the king of the universe. Why doesn't he just put all the tables outside this temple?" And all these people can just poof, and they're out there in the temple, and they got their money, and they're doing it outside the temple, which is, guess, where he wanted them to be, rather than dropping so low as to start whipping everything inside and throwing over tables. I just couldn't believe this. If this guy is supposed to be the greatest thing ever, it was pretty low. He was doing pretty low stuff there to me. I don't know. I never really did like the church. I never really was in a church, of my own. On my own account. I would have to be dragged in because of a relative. Usually on my father's side, they had lots of kids on there. So they always had a baptismal or some kind of wedding or something. So I'd have to go to the church and for that. And I just hated it because I always got a speech about how their church was so great and I should join. And I didn't want to be there. And I just felt like, boy, if I ever get out on my own, because I was a little kid, you know. I said, whenever I get on my own, I'm never coming into one of these places where it's magic time and everything's perfect and all these people in there are perfect. But as soon as they get outside the church, I see what they were doing, and they weren't honest. They weren't honest with other people. They would lie, they would cheat, they would steal. And then I knew some people that weren't religious at all. We had neighbors in the next orchard over, and they weren't religious at all. They never went to church. They were I think they were from China and Japan and other countries like that weren't real religious at all. And their word was gold. They would say, okay, we're going to bring our tractor around tomorrow. We're going to do this, and they would do it. But the real religious people, well, something came up, you know, and they throw God in there to make their excuse. Well, my wife had to go to church and I bake a cake and the pastor's wife was sick, and the soup, we had to get the chicken soup out there. And well, what happened to your word? I mean, your word is a lie for this church, to the church, or for you to the church. I don't know. So anyways, that was the story of my life. I just they never really captured me, so I roamed free. And every time I see a church, man, I go, man, that is not a place I want to go into. And I guess that's my story. Thanks for listening.